And as this war drags on, another could be starting soon. I'm talking about Israel and Iran. The signs are looking ominous. Iran is threatening to walk out of the nuclear deal. Israel is practicing to strike Iranian assets. None of this bodes well for the region and for the rest of the world. Now, Iran and Israel share a long history of conflict, but they've never fought a war. Never, ever. It has always been a shadow conflict, like proxy attacks, cyber attacks, industrial sabotage. It's always been cloak and dagger. Israel is accusing Iran of one such strategy of targeting Israeli citizens abroad. The first warning was about Turkey. Israeli citizens were asked to avoid visiting the country, Turkey. There were reports of plots to assassinate Israelis in Turkey, but Turkey tried to downplay all such reports. And you can understand why. Assassination plots can effectively end tourism. So Ankara switched to damage control. On Thursday, Israel's Foreign Minister Yair Lapid is expected to visit Turkey. The trip comes after a phone call between the two presidents, President Isaac Herzog of Israel and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey. Israel will also be hoping for security assurances. Turkey will be banking on good optics. But the problem is, it's not just Turkey. According to Israeli officials, the target is much wider. Israelis in the UAE, in Bahrain, in Jordan, Egypt, they could all be on Iran's radar. This is Israel's assessment. And their intelligence is on the lookout. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett sounded a warning on Sunday. He says Iran will pay if there is an attack.
We are currently witnessing Iranian attempts to attack Israelis in various overseas locations. The security services of the State of Israel are working to thwart attempted attacks before they are launched. We will continue to strike those who send the terrorists and those who send them. Our new rule is, whoever sends, pays.
There are many possibilities here. Number one, Iran is looking to target Israeli citizens abroad. Why? For starters, to put pressure on Israel and the US. Both countries are key to reviving the Iran nuclear deal in March 2022. A deal was within reach, but since then, talks have hit a dead end. A security threat to Israel could speed things up, at least put pressure on Joe Biden to grant some concessions. Another possibility is a double strike, a message to Israel and the Gulf states at the same time. Just look at the countries on Israel's warning list. Turkey, Bahrain, the UAE, Jordan, Egypt, all of them have normalized relations with Israel. So this threat could be a message to the Gulf states. Do not gang up against Tehran. But turns out Israel has a plan for that. A special West Asian Defense Alliance. Israel's defense minister confirmed its existence for the first time on Monday.
One of the key issues in this vision of cooperation is what I call MEAD, Middle East Air Defense. It can help with anything related to Iran's attempts to attack countries of the region using rockets, missiles, cruise missiles and UAVs. This program is already operative and has already thwarted Iranian attempts that I spoke about on other occasions, both here and in the Middle East in general.
Now that is big. Israel and the US are building a defense system in West Asia. And who is using this system? Not just Israel, but some Arab states too. Benny Gantz did not confirm which Arab states were part of it, but he did say some Iranian attacks were thwarted. So clearly the battle lines are drawn. Iran on one side, Israel and the Gulf states on the other. But there is also a third possibility here. And this is the possibility. Israel is bluffing about the threat to its citizens. They need a pretext to raise tensions with Iran, possibly strike Iran's nuclear assets. And what better excuse than a threat to its people? Like I said, it's all cloak and dagger. Both countries have a history of such shadow wars. But at what point does the shadow retreat? Could this become a full-fledged war? A lot depends on the Iran nuclear deal talks. As of today, there is no progress. Tehran says they're ready to strike a good deal, but on one condition. The United States must grant some concessions. Basically, they want two things. Number one, remove the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps from the foreign terror list. And number two, assurances that the US will not leave the deal again, like they did with Donald Trump. Joe Biden has refused to give either. He will not compromise on any of these points. And with each delay, Iran is closer to the bomb. They have enriched uranium to 60%. If they reach 90%, they will have weapons-grade uranium. And if that happens, Israel is going to respond. The question is, can Joe Biden stop it? Because let's face it, only he can. Biden can grant concessions to seal the Iran nuclear deal. He can also warn Israel against attacking Iran. He does have the leverage to do so. The US provides Israel with military assistance worth $146 billion. That money gives Biden a lot of clout. So all eyes will be on his West Asia tour next month. Biden will be making stops in Israel and Saudi Arabia. What he does there could decide America's future in West Asia. And there is one more reason that visit will be interesting, because Israel's government has just decided to dissolve the parliament next week. The Prime Minister's office announced the decision a few minutes back. Israel will be holding its 5th election in around 2 years, 5th, which means all the old faces will be back on the ballot. Benjamin Netanyahu, Yair Lapid, Benny Gantz, all of them will be vying for the Israeli Prime Minister's chair. It's safe to say West Asia is heading for a volatile period. We'll be watching. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news